As lawmakers in Washington prepare for the impeachment trial, Democratic voters are getting ready to go to the polls. Last night, those voters got their last chance before the Iowa caucuses to see some of the Democratic candidates on the debate stage. 6 candidates talked about their views on key issues like health care and foreign policy. And a recent disagreement between progressives Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren was in the spotlight. So Naomi Ruchim is here to give us a full recap of everything that happened. And, you know, there was some stuff that happened before the debate, during the debate, after the debate. What stood out?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, no doubt the biggest moment that everyone's talking about today is the handshake, or lack thereof, a handshake between Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. We will show you that exchange in just a moment, which was indeed awkward and uncomfortable. Yes, there were questions about the conflict in Iran and how the candidates believe they can defeat President Trump, but the sparring between those two candidates is what voters are talking about today.
And I am not here to try to fight with Bernie.
Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were ready to move on from reports that Sanders told his Senate colleague a woman couldn't win the presidency.
Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes. How could anybody in a million years not believe that a woman could become president?
Warren did draw a contrast between the men and women on stage.
The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women, Amy and me.
But the camera captured a tense moment after the debate.
I think they were trying to figure out something between the two of them, but I didn't really hear what it was.
Foreign policy took a larger role this time around.
Donald Trump is taking us pell-mell toward another war.
It's the first debate since the military escalation with Iran.
I'm ready to take on Donald Trump because when he gets to the tough talk and the chest thumping, he'll have to stand next to an American war veteran and explain how he pretended bone spurs made him ineligible to serve.
The candidates rehashed their health care arguments.
Everybody on this stage believes that affordable health care is a right for every single American.
And each believes they're ready to take on President Trump.
I've been the object of his affection now more than anybody else in this state. I've taken all the hits he can deliver, and I'm getting better in the poll.
This is the last debate before Iowans hold their first in the nation caucus next month.
Yes, it is. So we have those 6 candidates. There are other candidates that just didn't make the cut. But I guess everyone's eye and focus is going to be on the caucuses moving forward. What are the candidates going to be up to?
Right. Well, they've got the caucus coming up on the 3rd of next month. And then they have another debate a few days later, and then another primary shortly after that. So they've got a lot more campaigning to do. But here's the thing. About half of the candidates who are up there on stage are also senators, which means they're going to be in impeachment hearings for the next couple of weeks, potentially, and could lose time on the campaign trail. Also, they're not allowed to have their cell phones while they're in those hearings.
So no tweeting?
No tweeting,
or any
no
of that
connection to constituents.
Wow.
So yeah, they're going to lose out on some time.
Yeah, definitely. Naomi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is standing by in Des Moines, where he has been following the debate drama. Thank you so much for joining us, especially this early, Ed, because I know it was a late night. How could the back and forth between Sanders and Warren go over with Iowa voters? Because it seems now that the debate is over, the big conversation is about, as Naomi said, the handshake that was or wasn't, Tom Steyer sort of awkwardly standing between the two, the way they addressed whether or not Bernie Sanders indeed said a woman could not be president. That seems to be what people are talking about. What do voters think?
Yeah, it was as if Tom Steyer walked in on an awkward conversation between his parents. Look, the voters are waking up to this as well this morning, so we're going to have to take a little while to assess that. But this much we know. Over the past year, as we've talked to Iowa Democrats in our polling and in our reporting, they've said we would rather see these candidates focus on how they would defeat President Trump and what they would do if they regain the White House than beating up on each other. That said, Warren and Sanders are occupying that same, and we've talked about this, the same liberal lane. You know, they're the two New England progressives who have very similar views on virtually everything. The one distinguishing feature is gender. And so Warren now has essentially played the woman card by bringing this up, by forcing Sanders to spend valuable airtime last night explaining that no, he's not sexist, and yes, he does believe a woman could be elected president. By forcing him to do that and then taking the opportunity to essentially call out to people who would like to see a woman elected president that she thinks she can do it, it was a good moment for her, whether or not you like how this whole thing has gone down over the past 3 days.
Yeah. So you and CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns spoke to some of the candidates after the debate, including Tom Steyer. Caitlin actually asked him about some of the criticism he's received that he bought his way onto the debate stage. He was a late addition to this competition, if you will, and he spent a whole lot of money in a couple of states. Let's play his response.
I say, look, it's about the message. That in fact, you can't buy somebody's vote. The only thing that can happen if you have a message that's different, that it's important, and people believe in you as a person. So in fact, if you look what I've done, I spend every day trying to get face-to-face with as many people as possible. You know, the place where I have done the best polling has been in South Carolina. We have the most people in the field in South Carolina.
So I had a little bit of a back and forth with one of our producers here about this very topic, whether or not he bought his way onto the stage, because, you know, it's not just the money, but you have to obviously, you know, get to a certain level in the polls to make the debate stage, but you also have to have individual donors. So I want to get your take on it. How has money played a role in this election cycle?
Oh, it's been a constant topic of conversation. And you make a valid point there that because he's on stage, it means he met fundraising and polling thresholds. Maybe he bought the polling number by virtue of buying airtime through commercials across the country, but he also did have to convince people to give him at least $1. And he did use his money to buy some email lists of people that he could potentially hit up for donations. But look, the other guys are doing this too. The difference is they're asking people for money. And Mike Bloomberg, actually, you may remember in his interview with Gayle King last year, made the point, I'm doing exactly what they're doing. It's just that I'm not asking anybody else to pay for it. And therefore, I'm not beholden to anyone. That is an argument that has worked for guys like this before and very well may work again. And look, like it or not, Steyer is now polling in double digits in places like South Carolina and Nevada, where, yes, he's running a lot of ads, but he's a survivor, and he's figured this out. And the way to fix this, obviously, is to reconsider how much money is spent in politics, but that's for another time and a future Congress and president.
You also spoke to Amy Klobuchar about her role in the upcoming impeachment trial and how it may impact her campaign, because, you know, Mitch McConnell says it could go up to 4 weeks or 5 weeks. That's a lot of time off the trail. Here's what she had to say.
I have a constitutional duty to be a juror. And I can't think of anything more important than that. We have a president that put his own private interests in front of the interests of the country, his own partisan interests in front of the country. And so our job is to hear the evidence. And I will be back. I'm going to find ways. You have Sundays off in an impeachment trial. And actually, most of this next weekend. And so I'll be able to come back. My family will be here campaigning for me.
So sitting out sitting out during the trial, I think, would impact her almost the most, because she's always kind of like fourth, fifth. She's kind of like down on the end of the top tier. But she's not the only candidate that is a senator that will have to sit out campaigning. So how do you expect the impeachment trial to impact the race?
Well, look, Klobuchar, Warren, and Sanders have all said they will try to get here when they can. There is discussion underway about possibly having at least one of them spend the money they've raised to fly a charter plane from Washington at night to get here, hold a rally, and then fly back to D.C. in the same evening in order to be there for the trial the next morning. Klobuchar also points out there that you do have some weekend time potentially. And given that they're going to be holding this trial mostly, we are told, in the afternoons, there's a little flexibility with what you could do with your morning. So all of them will be relying on surrogates, most notably for Warren and Klobuchar, their husbands, who are emerging as more active and clearly supportive, but more active and vocal surrogates. Bernie Sanders may send some of those that support him, including members of the so-called squad, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Ilhan Omar. And they will, you know, find ways to reach voters despite not being here. What I'm more curious to see is whether Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden and Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer, those that aren't senators, spend time out here and by virtue of just being here, see their numbers climb. Because it'll be a real test of sort of what really matters in campaigning these days. Actually seeing and feeling the person and being in the room with them, or just seeing their ads on TV and on your social media streams. and learning more about what they would do. And I think it's going to be a good test of that over the next 19 days.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ed. Thank you.